Well, one man who's been at the very heart of Russian politics is one-time supporter and former friend of Vladimir Putin, the businessman Boris Berezovsky. He joins me now here in the studio. Boris Berezovsky, thank you very much indeed for coming in. We can see
Thank you very much for your invitation.
We can see from the white ribbon that you're wearing that you feel a sense of kinship with those protesters in Moscow today. We were talking to Alexander Nekrasov a while ago. He said, these protests are very interesting in Moscow, but these people are complaining about many, many different things. What do you think the protesters in Moscow and elsewhere want today?
I think, first of all, it's important to understand who are on the street, first of all. And if we try to analyze who are these people, I would like to stress it's new generation. This is the most important. Mainly it's young people who are born not in USSR.
They're not scared.
Who were born not in USSR.
Yeah, they're not scared.
Now they demonstrate they don't scare. It's important. It's absolutely important. But the important is that they not only were not born in USSR, they were formed mentally not in USSR. It means new generation with new mentality. They understand what means choice, what means to be free. And my proposal was that the way to the freedom passed through two stages. The first stage, you recognize that to be free, to be independent, better to be dependent, better to be slave. It's hard mentally work. And the second stage, to fight for freedom every day. To be able to go to street and to fight. And I think during Yeltsin time, mainly people passed through the first stage. They recognized that to be independent, better. To be free, to travel around the world. But they were not prepared to go onto the street and to fight every day for freedom.
Because the narrative that we've grown comfortable with in this country, in the West generally, is that Putin has offered the Russian people affluence, security, stability, a sense of national pride which was utterly eroded during the drunken, farcical years of Yeltsin. Are we saying now that some Russian people, and obviously it's tens of thousands of people who are demonstrating, that's not the whole country, yeah, far from it indeed,
definitely,
that some people feel they need more than just a well-run country, they want something more like a Western-style democracy?
First of all, I disagree with you. I think that mainly people recognize that what Putin promised and what happened is completely different. Putin played, I think, very dirty game using the nationalism, so-called, primitive nationalism, and promising a lot and didn't deliver that, yes? But nevertheless, I think the main point is that the new generation recognized that the priority number one is freedom, to have chance to make your personal, independent choice.
Some people will look at these live pictures, Boris Berezovsky, of demonstrations in Moscow right now and say, okay, whatever we say about Vladimir Putin, and we saw the pictures last week of opposition leaders being arrested, he's not sticking the jackboot in now. He's letting these protesters let off a little bit of steam. He's letting these protests going ahead. He's not sending in his own United Reform heavy mob and the thugs. And that's, you know, a mile away from Red Square and St. Basil's Cathedral and all the rest of it, the very heart of power. He is at least letting this demonstration happen. And there were many decades, you know, in Russia where to march on the streets of Moscow meant you would be gunned down by a machine gun. This is progress.
He doesn't have choice. I think that Putin recognized that he doesn't have choice because it's really massive protest. And if you
is it massive?
Compare what happened in Russia last 20 years, it's the biggest demonstration from the time when NTV was Russian, the most popular TV channel, was destroyed by Putin against, yeah. And you remember that the head of NTV was in jail and so on. But this is it's a lot. It's completely different story because you know that long time already, several years, they collect maximum 1,000, maximum 2,000 people, not more. And now people recognize it's happened. Maybe the potential power growing inside, but now we watch this power.
Presumably, Putin's gamble is, if we can just look at the protesters again, his gamble is that he's letting these protesters come on the streets today. They get a little bit cold, don't make any trouble, make a few headlines tomorrow, get on with their lives on Monday morning. The danger for Putin is that these protesters are filmed, watched by other Russians who think, okay, the time has come. He's letting us demonstrate, I'm going to join the demonstrations, and today it's 20,000 to 25,000 people Next Saturday, it's 250,000 people. That's the calculation.
I think so. It could happen. But what is the most important from my point of view? Definitely, people are fighting not correct election. They want to re-election, make re-election and so on. But I think the most important, the outcome is that Putin, from my point of view, does not have any chance to be elected as the next president of Russia. This is the biggest advantage of society. They don't want Putin more, and I think they have power not to allow him to take a chair, presidential chair, for next 6 years.
Boris Berezovsky, can I just ask one question, really, as a British news channel? People are looking at, okay, you say Putin maybe is a man who's overstayed his welcome in Russia, but in an unstable world, there will be many people here in the UK who will say, you know, we'd rather the devil we know, we'd rather Putin, for instance, rather than Yeltsin with his hand on the nuclear briefcase in one hand and a bottle of vodka in the other. We'd rather Putin. He's a ruthless character, but we know what we're dealing with.
I think again, I disagree with this. I can't disagree that there are people in Great Britain, because I have already experience of 10 years staying here, that people who think in that way. But I think majority of British people today change completely their mind. I remember when I came here 10 years ago and came to audience in front of politics, in front of students, and told, oh, Putin is a bad guy 10 years ago. They said, no, Boris, you are a bad guy. He is a good guy. You are rich, you are oligarch, you stole the country and so on. And it was for me very complicated to explain what I mean, because I really had very controversial position. But later on, already in 2007, when I came to Cambridge or to Oxford in front of students, and suddenly I recognized that when I present them Putin as a bad guy, they're boring for them. I recognize that they already learned that. But again, young people learn the first, but now I think, particularly after Litvinenko poison. You remember this story when Litvinenko was poisoned by polonium in the middle of London. And after that, I think approach to Russia changed a lot, and particularly approach to Putin himself.